Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Oprah's Masterclass Season 6, and this episode is about Tyler Perry. I will go on to say I was really blown away by this episode. It really shows that through all the hardship and all the grief that Tyler Perry had to face, from his childhood, through certain challenges he faced in his career, he's managed to keep God in his life, and he's managed to keep a humble spirit. And because of his strong faith, it has propelled him, throughout his life. That he's had strong faith even in the darkest times. And we've definitely seen some of his great successes. Stemming from his introduction of Madea, which is now which we could say Madea is now a cultural icon. His shows like The Haves and the Have-Nots, If Loving You Is Wrong, Too Close to Home, which appears on TLC. I mean, Tyler Perry has done a lot of remarkable things, and he's continuing to strive because he just recently landed a major deal with Viacom. So we're definitely going to see even more greater things from Tyler Perry in the future. So what I want to focus on in this episode is the key points that he stressed, as far as his life and as far as life skills that he has developed within himself, that has helped him to propel no matter what obstacle he was facing. The first thing that he mentions is use your pain for good. He was saying that even growing up, he was physically abused by his father, and his mother was also abused by the father as well. So he really grew up in a very turbulent household. But even through some of those hard times, he will say that, God will make a way for you. Don't ever let go of God's unchanging hand. So pretty much he pretty much says that he got his faith from his mother because he saw that his mother was enduring a lot of hardship in her marriage, but she stayed, and she pretty much had a lot of passion for him and a lot of love for the father, even though the father was behaving erratic and violent and turbulent. She, was all about her family and mainly about her children. And we see that he had a very, very deep, close relationship with his mother. And he said that a lot of his faith and a lot of his drive he got from her. And another thing they stressed in this episode is build bridges to healing. He starts talking about, the infamous discussion that he always leads with about when he was watching the Oprah Winfrey show, and, Oprah said that it's cathartic to write things down because it's a form of motivation and it can lead to bigger and better things. So any creative idea or anything that you have within yourself, get it out on paper, get it out and map it. So he was even saying in this that, this was his way of building a bridge to his healing, where he can finally let out some of this frustration. He can actually, channel his creative muse. And his whole ambition really was to become an architect. He didn't want to become a screenwriter. But because of the process, he began to develop a love of telling stories as well as expressing some of his, deepest angst, as far as some of the hardships he's dealt with, because we've definitely seen some of these in a lot of his plays, as far as domestic violence, incest, because he's been through all of that. And yet, even though he's had all of that hardship, he didn't let it harden his heart. And because he's learned some of these great life skills, it's helped him to propel regardless of the bad circumstances he was facing at the time. And another piece that he stresses is live in peace, not pieces. Definitely that definitely rings from Iyanla Vanzant, because she wrote a book on that. And he talks about how he moved from New Orleans, because that's where he's originally from. He's originally from New Orleans, and he moved to Atlanta, Georgia, to kind of start his own life. And even though he was going through a lot of hardship in Atlanta, Georgia, his mom was like, you can always come home. But he said that New Orleans, there was a lot of negative energy there. There was a lot of, hurt, a lot of trauma, a lot of, post-traumatic stress. And he said that, when he got to Atlanta, he was free. He was able to express himself. He was able to, live life and be around people who appreciated him, and he began to live life. So he pretty much said that his mission was not to go back to the dark place, which was New Orleans. He wanted to stay in Atlanta, and he was going to struggle until he made it. And he had this strong determination. And he actually talks about within this process that his first play, I Know I've Been Changed, he said that for years when he tried to launch this play, for years it had very low attendance. He would quit his job to put the play up, and the play would not make any money, and he went through that for a very long time. He constantly was going through this battle like, is this really meant for me? Am I really going to be successful? And these are questions that I even ask myself, because I'm also a performer, and I definitely have those challenges as well. And looking at, Oprah's masterclass, it is definitely even having an effect on me, seeing Tyler tell his story about how he's, constantly had, one bad situation after another. But regardless of how many knockdowns he received, he got back up and he kept going, because he knew he had a mission, and he knew he knew that there was something special about his ability, and that he was going to be somebody, and that the voice of God was letting him know that to not give up no matter what happens. So he pretty much went through hardship for 7 years with this play where there was nobody attending, and it wasn't until 1998 that things turned around. He was 28 years old. The play opened at the House of Blues in Atlanta. It was March 12, 1998, and it was a really cold night in Atlanta. So he was panicking, thinking because of the weather, people were not going to come. And he said he heard that voice, that godly voice, tell him, "Shut up and look out the window." He looks out the window. The line wrapped around the corner, and it broke him down, because he said that, wow, God has a way of showing up. When you think you have it figured out, God lets you know what it is. And he said he got his confirmation that night, and he said that night the place was packed, and he got a standing ovation. And he says from that moment on, every play he's done has sold out, even the play he did 2 months ago. So I was like, that's power right there, because I definitely grew becoming a big fan of Tyler Perry through his plays. I mean, when I first saw Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Medea's Family Reunion, the play version, oh my God, you talking about somebody who was in tears that I was laughing so hard. And probably all of you who have experienced Tyler Perry's work, you definitely probably had some of the same reactions, because the man was just a creative genius, and we've just seen his talent just grow and blossom over the years. Another point, he made is trust your gut, because he says that, look, a lot of people are going to tell you that you're not going to be able to do this. A lot of people are going to say you can't do this, it's impossible, you have this hurdle, you got that hurdle. But he says you have to trust your gut, because your gut is your connection to God. God is giving you something to do. And if you are too busy listening to the outside and not trusting what you think and what you feel, you could be missing out on great opportunities for your life and for your career. And he also talked about, in this segment about, in 2010 he appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, where he opened up about his childhood trauma, about how he was one time beaten so bad that he was literally blacked out for 3 days, and his father was very, not only physically abusive, but emotionally abusive, and then he was also sexually abused by others. So he pretty much dealt with a lot of abuse in his early years, and even to the extent that he even attempted suicide. But he said that I'm glad that I was unsuccessful at the suicide, because I realized that you can make it through this. This was not the end. And then he pretty much also talks about, the relationship he had with his father, and he said that his father had like this deep hatred for him, so he always questioned, was he really his father? And he would ask his mom, and his mom every time would tell him, like it or not, he's your father. Even on her deathbed, when he asked her, is he really my father? She says, like it or not, he's your father. So it wasn't until after she passed that he did a paternity test with his brother, and he found out that him and his brother had a different father. Then he tested with his father and found out that, his father wasn't really his father. So that's the reason why a lot of the hatred and a lot of the, negative disdain that he got from his father, he received because, the father treated him differently, because he wasn't really his kid. And that's really sad, and it's very tragic that you have some families who are like that, who treat stepchildren worse than Cinderella. And it's insane. And it's really sad that he had to go through that, but he said it actually made him stronger. It actually made him more determined, and it made him more, and it actually strengthened his faith to move past this negative environment to get to somewhere better, because he knew God had a plan for him. Another point he makes is stand in front of your pain. And by him doing Oprah to finally open up about it was him standing in front of his pain. And he says that a lot of black men, who have dealt with some of these hardships, internalize it, and they never talk about it. They never express some of the things they're going through, so therefore they hold it inside, and they just live tormented day by day. And he says that, look, in order for you to be free, you have to admit your pain, acknowledge it, and then be willing to step forward, step in front of it, so therefore you can then have a clean slate and you can move forward. And then he also brings up a gem, a real gem. Forgive to be free. Because forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. Yes, you. Forgiveness is for you. When you have all of this animosity and all this hurt against someone else, you're doing more damage to yourself than the person that you're angry at. So when you actually forgive, you not only forgive them for the negative energy that they placed upon you, but then you forgive yourself for allowing it to tear you apart, and you begin to free yourself to move forward and to not have any past grudge or past animosity. And in all honesty, I have done that, and in many aspects of my life with some of the trauma that I've dealt with. Because I was also physically abused growing up, so I can definitely relate to Tyler Perry on this subject. Actually watching the episode, it kind of made me tear up, because due to the fact that I do suffer from post-traumatic stress, sometimes I can relive some of those moments as if it happened yesterday, and it's crazy. But I now, am knowledgeable that I have this problem, so now I step in front of it, and now I know when this comes about, and I know, okay, I know what this is. I need to try to focus on the positive and on what is going good versus on what may have happened in the past or what may be currently happening that's bringing this negative energy into my space. So, and then he says that, when you don't forgive, it becomes like an acid that just eats away at you, and it makes you bitter. And he pretty much stresses, do not be bitter. You can be angry, you can be upset, you can be frustrated, but do not be bitter. So, pretty much, forgiveness is a way for you to not to be bitter but to move past it and see even more greater opportunities that God may have for you in the future. Oops, my bad. And then he also talks about his development of the House of Pain and how he really went through that fight because, he went against the formula and developed something different. Where he wanted to launch, normally when you do a pilot, you just do one episode to launch the show, and if the pilot, is successful, they'll ask for more episodes. He did 10 off the bat, and everyone was like, why do you got 10 episodes? He's like, because I want to do 10 episodes. He wanted to change the formula because he believed in his show and believed in his work that it was going to be a hit. And what happened, I think, was that UPN and WB kind of merged companies, and they pretty much had, due to the merge, they lost a lot of programs, I think. So they really didn't have that much of a lineup, and then they pretty much let him do 10 episodes, and then he wanted to do 100, and that's when he made the deal with TBS. And I remember, pretty much Tyler Perry House of Pain actually saved TBS because TBS was really faltering when Tyler Perry's House of Pain started coming on, and it actually increased the ratings and actually saved the network. So that was remarkable that Tyler is a person that's an innovator, that he pretty much goes for what he believes in. He's not about trying to fit within the current formula or the current constraints of Hollywood. And he says that, look, it's their system. Don't argue with it, because at the end of the day, you arguing with a system that you did not create is ludicrous, it's stupid, and it's a waste of time. So don't argue with the system, create your own. And that's exactly what he did. He created his own system, and now there are a lot of shows now that do like the 90 to 100 episode deal, the 90 over 100 deal, where you get a slot where you can do 90 episodes or 100. So therefore, you actually have a deal where you have all of these shows, you have all these episodes, and you can actually you actually have more of a fair shot of making your show last and building your audience. And we've seen that with some of his shows, where shows that he's introduced, you can tell that some of the shows may have started off slow, but then they progressed over time. I mean, the shows now get a chance to actually breathe, and you get more room to be creative with your work. Versus how it was done before, where it's just a hit or miss. If it's a hit, then there's definitely promise within that. There's pretty much promise within your show progressing and becoming more and more successful. He says that. See your intention. He says, see your intention and where you want to land. So, pretty much with that, he's saying that, look, failure is not an option. If you have a setback, that's a lesson to be learned. It's not something that, because you got knocked over, or because you didn't get that job you wanted, or that opportunity, passed you by, does not mean you failed. It just means that you have learned a lesson. You need to see what's the lesson in that situation and continue on until you strike gold. And pretty much he says that, the role of Madea, he says he hates the costume, but he says as long as people embrace Madea, he will continue to wear that costume, and he will continue to perform that role, because that role has become a phenomenon. I mean, I remember the first time I saw Madea in Diary of a Mad Black Woman, I was in tears. I was laughing so hard. And it was so innovative for me, and it was innovative for me because this is something I'd never seen before. And then on top of it, it was also very inspiring because, that Madea character is definitely something that a lot of us need. You know, that grandmother that's going to tell you like it is, that's not going to take any of your crap, and will check you if you get out of line. You know, Big Mama, you know, Madea, you know, Mother Dear. You know, she always made sure that the family, you know, operated accordingly, and that, you know, everybody stayed together. She was kind of like that glue that held everybody together, but also was that one that made everybody, you know, check themselves when they were out of line. And then another thing that he also mentions in this episode is embrace your fear with love. And he's saying that one of his fears that he had to face was being a father. I mean, and I can pretty much see where some of that was a challenge for him, because, you know, him coming from the upbringing he had, he definitely did not want to be the kind of father that his father was to him. And it's funny because he even mentions that on his mother's deathbed, his mother asked him to still take care of his father and to look out for him. So he says that, yeah, I take care of my father, you know, because I think about it, yeah, he was mean and he was brutal and he was vicious, but he still provided for his family. He went to work and brought all his money home, so he provided us with food and shelter. So he says that I, in turn, have provided him food and shelter, got him a nice house, and I also got food for him to eat. But then the thing that he doesn't have, that I never had with my father, was a relationship. So that's something we do not have. And he was saying that, but giving him the food and the shelter is the easy part. So I was like, even after even though this guy was mean and vicious and cruel to him, who physically and psychologically abused him, he still had the heart to care for him, because he knew that his mother loved that man. Even though he was vile, he was mean, he was a bully, and he abused his wife and abused his child, you know, he still had love and compassion for this man. And that touched me, because to really love your enemy, or to love the person who has done you wrong, that is true strength. That is what being a man is all about. And that really touched me. But then as far as like what he was saying, that, you know, the fear of being a dad, you know, he said he wanted to be the best father he can be, and he wanted to give his son the best opportunities that he didn't have when he was growing up. And he says that he is very, very attached to his son. He loves being a father. And he sees that, you know, when he sees his son, he sees that little boy inside him. You know, that little boy that's scarred, but he says that little boy is healing every day because of his son. And it's like with his son, he gets to relive his childhood with his son. And I thought it was really beautiful. So pretty much that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But this is going to be a new show that I'm going to be doing, because I actually want to show some positive content on my channel. And I definitely want to actually help inspire someone. So if I am helping people by sharing this review of Oprah's Masterclass, I'm all for that. So definitely, definitely check this out. But yes. Subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and I will be back with the next episode of Oprah's Masterclass. So until then, everybody, take care.